Before we start the show this week, we wanted to take a quick second to tell you about a new initiative we're introducing in the podcast, which is our Talking Cars donation program. For those that don't know, CR is a nonprofit, and we're able to do all of the work we do, including anonymously buying our test cars and producing this show through memberships to our website and magazine, as well as through donations. What the Talking Cars donation program will do is allow loyal Talking Cars fans to show support for the podcast, assist in supporting the costs of producing the podcast, as well as support all the work CR does to keep consumers safe. You'll be able to contribute either as a one-time donation or on a monthly basis. Even $5 a month really helps. Go to cr.org/give-talking-cars to find out more. In any event, we'll keep delivering Talking Cars each and every week. Again, go to cr.org/give-talking-cars to find out more. Thanks for watching and enjoy the show.
This week, we share our first impressions of the 2020 Audi Q7 SUV, give tips on how to avoid buying a used car that's been in a flood, and whether putting your car in neutral at a stoplight can help fuel economy. Next on Talking Cars. Hi everyone and welcome back. I'm John Lincove.
I'm Mike Monticello.
And I'm Mike Quincy.
And you know, if 2020 couldn't get any worse, now there's stories that there's 2 hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico, pushing a lot of floodwater and storm surge into Texas and Louisiana and the surrounding area. Mike Quincy, we've done a lot of work on stories on flooding, flood cars, flood safety. What can you tell us about that people should look out for, particularly after the storm? Not when they're hunkered down, but when they might go out and put themselves in risk.
Well, a lot of times people think that just because I have a big SUV, a big pickup truck, that it's okay to drive over standing water or even lightly flowing water. But that could not be further from the truth. I mean, generally speaking, you always want to turn your car around if the water looks to be around 6 inches or deeper. Even 2 feet of fairly fast rushing water can basically dislodge, pick up a pickup truck and make it flow downstream. I mean, there are reports year after year of people thinking they can drive across standing or flowing water and only need to be having a harrowing rescue because their car gets swept downstream. And another thing that people don't actually realize is that under the water, the road could be washed away. There could be live wires that came down during a storm. So it's another reason to treat this storm and these water surges seriously. I mean, I lived in Texas for about a year, and they have a lot of low like kind of water crossings. There's sections of the road that kind of dip down, and there's every year there would be stories on the local news of people getting caught into a flash flood or some kind of a hurricane like incident and having their vehicle washed away. And it's something that people definitely should be taking seriously.
Well, and Monty, this really does have a big impact on areas that don't get a lot of rain. So parts of Texas, but also California, where you spend a lot of time, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I lived in Southern California for 15 years, and places like Southern California, the West out there where Quincy was in Texas, their soil there isn't really designed to get a lot of rain. They don't get a lot of rain. So when it comes, it can be, it can flood really quickly. But even here on the East Coast where we live, our soil is a little better at absorbing that water. But, if a ton of rain comes down at once, it's going to be dangerous conditions out there. And kind of touching on what Quincy was talking about, the 12 inches of water can take a car away, just, especially if it's rushing water. It's even more dangerous at night because you can't see how, it's even harder to see how deep that water is. And also, more than half of flood-related drownings occur when someone drives into hazardous water, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, and the National Weather Service. So it's a pretty big deal. You really have to be careful out there. And the other thing is that I think people, so what could happen, right? Well, basically, if you're driving in, deep water, the car could hydroplane off the road, right? The car could get swept away, as Quincy talked about. And if you drive into a water that's even, just up to the car's bumper, the air intake could suck in that water. It could, make the engine stall, and now you're stuck in all that water. So you really have to be careful.
And one of the things, first off, we have content on consumerreports.org on this exact topic. So if you check the show notes, you'll be able to click through to that. But also, even post hurricane, so now you have a time where people have had, significant loss, obviously the potential for housing loss and such, but also their vehicles from flooding, from storm surge, from wind, whatever it is. So now they have to get a new vehicle. And a big problem that you get is that a lot of people buy up some of those salvage scrapped vehicles and resell them into other parts of the country. So there's things that people should look for, not just in the area of, say, Houston or Louisiana, greater Louisiana or New Orleans, where the floods from these hurricanes may happen, but all the way up to Chicago, and you're talking into North Carolina and even in the Northeast, because the cars get dumped up there, resold with salvage titles, and then the titles get washed by moving them through different states. So we have some content on consumerreports.org as well about things to look for when you're buying a used car. And even now with the pandemic, used cars are so highly sought that these might be out there for a lot, lower price and seem attractive. But you might look for things such as, weird rust on screws that are inside the car. A water line that may be inside the lights, the headlights, so the water came up and then sat for a while, dropped away. Brackets inside the car again, or even inside the engine bay with odd grime. So things like that are good signs that a car was in a flood or, had significant flood damage and then got moved somewhere else. So, check out this information on consumerreports.org. We have the links below. We hope everyone's safe through this, but definitely check our site out for information to help you, weather the storm, get back going, and also if your vehicle needs to be replaced. That's going to move us to our next section, what's at the track this week. And we're testing the Audi Q7 SUV. And it's a luxury 3-row SUV that was freshened for 2020, which coincided with the arrival of the Q8 SUV, which is basically a 2-row, slightly more angular, slightly chopped, if you will, 2-row version of the Q7. What we bought, 2020 Q7 55 TFSI. That's a mouthful of names from Audi. That means that it has a 3-liter turbocharged V6 engine. It has an 8-speed automatic transmission, standard all-wheel drive. The manufacturer's suggested retail price of this kind of big, beastly SUV is $60,800. We got a Premium Plus, which is the mid-range model. Now, it's interesting technically. If you look at the Monroney, the window sticker, Premium Plus is a package that costs $3,000. The total with destination of $995 comes out to a $71,010 SUV. So you're done hearing about me. Monty, why is this freshened? Why did we bring it in? What did Audi do specifically? And how did it perform so far?
Well, first of all, I want to bring it back to you, John. I just noticed your T-shirt with the 3 pedals on there. That's fantastic. Save the manuals, as always.
So we have the play, which is the gas pedal for those of you who are listening. And then we have the brake pedal, which is stop. And then, of course, we have the clutch for fast forward or fast or reverse. So rewind back to analog or tape. So, but thank you for calling it out.
I love it.
I went casual this week.
Yeah, thanks for dressing up for all of us. Also, you mentioned that it's a Q7 55. Just want to touch real quick on Audi's kind of strange naming system. So with the turbo V6, it's a Q7 55. The base engine is a turbo 4-cylinder. That's the Q7 45. But back to what this car is, the big news is that now it's a turbo V6, replaces the previous supercharged V6, and it's a better power plant in just about every way than the supercharged V6 that it replaces. It's smoother, it's quieter. It has plenty of passing power, has a really nice polished sound quality to the engine. And then the other things about the Q7, most of the other things really don't change. It has a very beautiful interior with like matte wood and chrome trim and glossy black trim. All that kind of stuff pretty much stays the same. And the cabin's very quiet, as before, and the new engine just even adds to that. There are a couple things about it that, maybe, little downsides here and there. There is, a noticeable hesitation especially from rolling stops. And I think it's really a little bit of turbo lag. It's certainly not a deal breaker, but it is something that you will notice sometimes when you go back to get on the power, there's this hesitation. And oddly, even though it has this new engine, it's actually just a couple tenths, few tenths slower from 0 to 60 mph than the supercharged V6. And the fuel economy doesn't improve. It stays the same as it was before. So that's kind of, the overview. But the other things, it still feels like a heavy vehicle when you take it through turns. I think the steering is nicely weighted, but there is noticeable body roll. And, the ride has a bit of a firm edge to it. But the big news really is that turbo engine, which really does improve the car.
Well, one of the interesting things about this, the Q7, Mike Quincy, is that it's a 3-row vehicle, but it's kind of a tweener. It doesn't necessarily match up with a lot of its competitors for third row size, right?
Exactly, John. I mean, this is one of the things that we dinged the Q7 for having, and that's a pretty small third row seat. If you have larger kids, kind of like mine, or like grown men practically, they're not going to fit back there. So it's definitely a consideration if you're thinking about this as a family vehicle. And as far as the rest of the interior goes, it's beautifully finished. It's in a typical Audi fashion. But what frustrated me was there's no interior storage space. I mean, you're looking at the center console. There's cup holders, which of course are useful. But I mean, who these days doesn't have a cell phone? You're always looking for a place to put a cell phone, to put a pack of gum, to put something. And you have cup holders, and that's just about it. And what was also kind of a bummer for me was I had the pleasure of driving the Q7 for our top-notch video guys to do the B-roll that you guys are probably looking at right now. And I got to push this car really hard on the track. And, you talked about body roll. I felt that this car felt very top-heavy for me. I didn't think it had a lot of grip. It didn't feel like a sporty European kind of a chassis that we've gotten used to, whether it's Audi, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, or whatnot. And I thought, okay, so the average suburban buyer isn't going to be taking this car to a track. But for me, I was a little disappointed with kind of the kind of at the grip, at the limit handling.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this generation certainly is far ahead of the previous one, the original Q7. I mean, that was a kind of a ponderous tank. A hippo of a vehicle almost, and this one definitely has some more chops, but it doesn't meet up to the level of, say, the X7. And I think it falls in between maybe a GLS, Mercedes-Benz GLS, and a BMW X7 in some of the ride and handling characteristics. One of the things Audis, a lot, like you said, a lot of Audis recently don't have a lot of storage room. Some of them have a little bin to the left side, the lower left side of the steering column. But again, it may be a place to put something, but it's not something accessible. That's one of the weird letdowns of the Audi. I do like the new infotainment system, the dual screen system. I actually think the one in the Q3 is the best. One screen with some manual controls, but I can live with the two different touch screens that they have. I enjoy it. I like using it a lot better than the new system that's in the GLS and other Mercedes-Benzes, for example. But overall, it's a shapely, nice looking, but not outright gorgeous, outright ugly SUV. It performs well enough in our tests.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about the dual screens. It took me a little bit. We've had several Audis now that have switched to this new dual screen setup that they have for the infotainment system. And I think it will take someone who hasn't used it before a little bit of time to get used to it. But I think once you do get used to it, it does actually start to make sense. And you will actually appreciate that there are two screens to separate things out.
It's true, and some of it is redundant also between the screens, so you have multiple multiple options as far as where you can have some features. You don't have to always close Waze, for example, up on the top screen. When you want to use the radio can be on the bottom screen. So it is well thought out. I think it's a nice evolution. We have the test results, so go to consumerreports.org for all the latest updates on the Q7, as well as the GLS and the X7 if you're looking for a 3-row SUV. So that brings us to the question and answer part of our show. And as always, we like getting the questions. We love video questions. We love text questions. Send them to us, talkingcars@icloud.com. And we try to get as many as we can on. But you guys just send so many. It's hard. This week's episode, we've got some challenging questions from the audience. A hard group to satisfy this week. We really spent a lot of time chatting, talking these over. And I'm looking forward to hearing what the two mics...
It was like they were trying to stump us this week.
Exactly. They everyone upped their game. So the first one comes from Daniel. It's a video question, so hit it.
Hi, Talking Cars. Love you guys. My wife and I are upgrading her Volvo S60 because it's a little small. We have 2 young kids. SUVs are a little hard for my wife to maneuver with the car seats because she's on the shorter side. She refuses to get a wagon or a minivan. She doesn't like hatchbacks, except for she kind of likes the Sportbacks. Volkswagen Arteon, BMW 3 Series Gran Turismo, Buick Regal, that kind of thing. I was wondering if you had a recommendation for best Sportback type car from the perspective of being a family hauler.
Mike Quincy, what do you have as a suggestion for Daniel?
So yeah, tough call. Listen, no wagons, no minivans, no hatchbacks. You mentioned the 3 Series Gran Turismo. Warning here, that's a really small back seat. I don't think that's going to work out too well with your kids. And I think when it comes to the best Sportback for me, and I know Monty's going to love this, the Kia Stinger, man. Yeah. That is kind of like a sports car, but also can double as a family car. It's got the big hatchback. It's got a lot of room in back. But definitely check it. If you're considering buying one of these, bring your child seats to the dealer, install them, make sure everything fits. I mean, that's not only true for the Kia Stinger, but any vehicle that you're thinking about buying, since this is going to be a family vehicle. But my recommendation, check out the Stinger.
All right, that's a good choice. I'm going to cross that off my list of suggestions. Monticello, what do you have for our friend?
But can I just go on just a slight small rant for a second, John?
Why would today be any different than normal, Mike?
So I kind of get a little, like I just want to say to people, get over this whole minivan and wagon, stigma or anti-stigma, they just make so much sense. When you think about a minivan, how space efficient it is and how easy to load it is because of, its height and its ride height, its load height. Wagons, again, have lots of room. Typically, they handle a little better than an SUV or a minivan. They have a Volvo S60. Well, the V60 wagon or the V90 wagon are great looking cars. I know they want to step up a little bit in size. They could do that with the V60 wagon because it's going to have more space, or they could go up to the V90. And also, for me, look, I'm a single guy. I love taking minivans. The stigma doesn't bother me. I got over it a while ago, especially if I'm going on any kind of a trip. It just makes so much sense, especially usually there's some biking involved. It's just so handy to be able to throw a bike in there or a couple bikes.
Yeah, I think we'd agree. The van stigma is kind of is unfounded. Just like all journalists buy brown cars with manual transmissions, a minivan doesn't mean mom-mobile. And my quick answer, so I went and ran some numbers. Kia Stinger, they're available up to $5,000 off incentives. The Volkswagen Arteon right now, and at least in this area of Connecticut and New York, doesn't have any incentives on it. Some interesting things. The Regal, not reliable, available with up to at least $7,000 off of the price. Lots of them online if you go to Buick.com and start searching for them. Audi A5, there's still some 2019s out there. My gosh, they have big incentives on them. I also thought the BMW X2 might be, it's a little small, but it's lower. So it has that kind of hatchy, but not hatch, Sportback look. Specials on the 2020 leftovers. That's a recommended car as well. So it's has average or better reliability. Hope that long-winded answer gives you some ideas, Daniel. We definitely want to hear what you did. So email us back with a picture of the car and let us know if we helped you out. Our next question is going to go into two questions that came at the same time about shifting a transmission at stoplights. The first says, I used to own a vehicle which had auto brake hold, which I loved. My current vehicle does not have this feature, so I find myself putting it in neutral at stoplights and drive-thrus to save my foot. Is this going to damage anything in the shifter mechanism or transmission? And the other question that came in, similar, are there any issues to putting the automatic transmission from drive to neutral in older cars when stopped at lights, as I assume new cars with auto stop-start are doing for fuel savings right now? So Monty, I know you went over to mechanic extraordinaire John Ibbotson and asked some questions about this. What did he tell you?
I'm going to answer the second question first, which is, Tyson was talking about, what really referring to is engine auto stop start. And that's where the engine gets turned off when you come to a stop to save fuel. So it's not really about shifting the car into neutral. It's about the fact that the engine's completely turning off. So shifting it into neutral is not the same thing. What I'm guessing, his thought there is by shifting it into neutral at a stoplight, he's maybe saving some fuel because the car, in drive, maybe it has that desire to kind of creep forward a little bit. But John Ibbotson told me that, by shifting into neutral at a stoplight, you're going to get negligible fuel savings. So there's really no point to do that. But the main question here is, does this shifting from drive into neutral, damage anything? And the answer is no. I mean, it's not gonna do anything. But again, in most cases here, you're really not helping anything, especially in Tyson's case. Just in case people don't know what auto brake hold is. There's in a lot of cars, or some cars, there's a little button that you can press that might say, like in the BMW 3 Series I'm driving right now, it says Auto H. And if you press that button, when you come to a complete stop, you can actually let your foot off the brake, and then it won't go anywhere until you go back onto the gas again, and it'll stay like that. It's not like you have to do it at every single light you come to. It will do that. But the bottom line is, but I was going to say one more thing. For the first question, I don't, the shifting into neutral, yes, as John said, that's not going to hurt anything. But if you're shifted into neutral, what if you're on any kind of a slight incline, now you're looking at, you shifted to neutral because you're, at a drive-through. Well, if it's not perfectly flat, you could roll backwards or slightly forward. So I'm not sure that's really a great solution either. You're probably best, just leaving your foot on the brake, to be totally honest with you.
Some of it also with the engine shutoff is not only is the engine shutting off, but it also stops running the accessories. So, you don't have the air conditioning running or anything like that. So that's saving additional fuel that if putting in neutral is not going to do anything, it's still going to, run your accessories. Quince, we were talking about whether he was talking about a manual transmission for the first question or automatic, short of riding the clutch. Any advice?
Well, yeah, John, and it definitely goes back to your T-shirt. I mean, a little story. When I started working at Consumer Reports in the home office in Yonkers, New York, in the early 90s, I bought a new 93 Acura Integra. It was a 5-speed manual, and being kind of a new car dummy back then, I kept the clutch in every time I came to a stoplight. And I rolled around like that for about the first 50,000 miles. And then the clutch in my Acura went out. And I started talking to people and they said, no, actually, it's probably a better idea when you're driving a manual transmission. When you come to a stoplight, put the car in neutral, take your foot off the clutch and just have your right foot on the brake, and then re-engage the gears when the light turns green. And that's just from my experience. So, from my house to your house, that's my advice. And that's the first thing I thought of when we started talking about these questions.
Well, hopefully that this does clear some things up. It's probably not really worth going back and forth, shifting it in and out, for any kind of automatic transmission. Right. And at the end, it might even catch you unaware. You roll right up, put it in neutral, then the light changes. Just leave it in gear. You're not going to be saving fuel or anything like that. Our final question comes from CJ from Vermont, who says, I have less than a year on the lease of my 2018 Subaru Impreza 5-door in northern New England. While I like the Impreza, the ride height always felt a little too low. I've tried a CRV and a Forester, but they're both too much of a road boat. I learned to drive in a 1990s Chevrolet S10 pickup truck, and I'd go back to a compact pickup truck in a heartbeat, but my commute is an hour each way, and the gas mileage on pickups is not good generally. Are there any subcompact utility vehicles or compact pickups that have hybrid options you might recommend? The closest Hyundai, Kia, and Toyota dealers are an hour away, and Mazda is 2 hours, if distance to dealership is a factor you consider. Mr. Monticello, you spend a lot of time up in the north. Any suggestions?
Well, so, I feel like maybe CJ kind of wants a pickup truck. So I looked at it more from the pickup truck side. When you think about the least pickup trucky pickup, if that's even a phrase, which I don't know if it is.
You could trademark that one.
It is now.
Yeah. I would, you look at the Honda Ridgeline. It's hard not to look at the Honda Ridgeline. If you're looking for a truck that doesn't drive like a boat, the Honda Ridgeline is quiet, it's smooth, it has a good ride. Its fuel economy is surprisingly not really that great in terms of being a small pickup. The Ford Ranger, which is also a compact pickup truck, uses a turbo 4-cylinder instead of a naturally aspirated V6 like the Ridgeline does, and it gets the same fuel economy in our testing. But one thing that CJ could think about is going with like a Chevrolet Colorado or GMC Canyon. They have turbo diesels that you can have. It's a 2.8 liter turbo diesel 4-cylinder, and they get significantly better fuel mileage than the other compact pickup trucks. So, and then then you've also got that really nice low end torque that comes with a diesel. Not that they're not that they're perfect. They have below average predicted reliability, and the seats in the driving position, aren't the best. But that's just something to think about. If you're looking for good fuel economy, you could think about going the turbo diesel route.
Good option. Good option. Mike Quincy, what's your thoughts?
Monty, you jumped on my Ridgeline thing. I was if the question didn't bring up the S10, I wouldn't have suggested the Ridgeline. But like you, I'm with you. It has among the best fuel economy of a non-diesel, good reliability. So I definitely second that one. The other thing that I got to think about, and I know exactly how John Linkov feels about the Toyota RAV4 hybrid. He's like, oh, I don't really like this vehicle, the interior ambience and the noise and stuff like that. But listen, if fuel economy is the name of your game, and you want something that's reliable, I would forgive the faults of the RAV4 hybrid. And I'm not discounting the fact that they have their faults, because it definitely does. But you combine the Toyota reliability with this incredible fuel economy, and I think that has to jump into the top of your list, especially for a long commute.
It could be that you read my one of my recent pieces on consumerreports.org of comparing the RAV4 hybrid with the Honda CR-V hybrid, or perhaps the Honda CR-V hybrid with my suggestion, the Ford Escape hybrid. Now, I know, new model. Recent Ford products haven't launched very well. That's why the Escape has below average predicted reliability. But the Ford Escape hybrid gives you the fuel economy, gives CJ the fuel economy that he wants. It is not a road boat, as he referred to the CR-V and the Forester. The Escape has always been a sportier option, sportier side of the SUV world, sort of like Mazda CX-5 has also been on that side of the equation versus the RAV4 or the CR-V, for example. So this is an option that he could look for. Hybrids have had up and down sales numbers depending. When gas prices are low, as they are right now, they don't typically sell as much, except if you have a couple that are super popular. Priuses tend to do well, a RAV4 hybrid does. So here's an opportunity, maybe get a new vehicle. You have a warranty on it. It's been built for long enough. Perhaps Ford has gotten some of the kinks worked out with the first year model, so hopefully that would be okay. You can wait till the end of the year. Hopefully, CJ, you don't have to buy immediately, since you say you have less than a year on your lease. So, look after our reliability data comes out this fall on consumerreports.org and see how the Ford Escape performed in its first year. But that's my suggestion. I think you can go there and kind of split the difference of fun, nice handling, and fuel economy. So I think good choices all around. As always, check the show notes below for more information on what we discussed. Send us your questions, talkingcars@icloud.com. And thanks for watching, and we will see you all next week.